Welcome to the Clear to Send podcast, a podcast about wireless engineering, where we educate you on Wi-Fi technology, talk about design tips, troubleshooting, interviews, and the tools. Here are your hosts, Rowell and François.
Hey everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Send podcast. I am joined with our co-host François Vergès. How are you doing, François?
I'm very good. Hey, Roy, how are you?
I'm good. I've been tired lately, and yesterday was the first time I slept for about, I think, 12 hours straight.
Oh, that's nice. I was expecting you to say 24 hours straight.
I wish I kept sleeping for 24 hours, but it was good because I've been working so much, and then I just needed a break to just catch up on sleep. But yeah,
that's good. I took a break this week too because my parents were down from France, so time off as well. Felt good.
Oh, that's right. So you did a mini vacation in Winter Wonderland.
Yeah, exactly. I went to a small mountain close to where I live. Nice.
Yeah, and you showed me some pictures, and I thought it was really cool. While over here on the West Coast, I'm in my shorts and flip-flops. It wasn't really cold yesterday, so hopefully you enjoyed the snow while I enjoyed the sun.
Exactly. Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was like minus 15, and we had a whole bunch of snow.
Having that much snow is it's interesting, right? And do you ever have to deploy Wi-Fi in snow?
In snow, no, but you have to do because usually you don't deploy the APs where the snow is, but you do have to care about temperatures, right? So you have to, in some part, if you do outdoor Wi-Fi, especially in Canada, you have to be careful, and you need to make sure that you look at the minimum temperature of operation. And and making sure that you don't exceed that. In some countries, you look at the maximum temperature.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Here, if you want to do outdoor, usually it's minimum. Look at the minimum.
So I wonder, do you ever have to put an AP in an enclosure that has some sort of heater in it?
I've never had to do that, but I think you can do that. Usually, what I try to do most of the time is try to place the AP inside. And then feed the antenna cable through the outside wall of the building, and then only put the antenna outside.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, because the antenna is it's more resistant to durable, the elements. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Or you could use like NEMA enclosures.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I know, I think Ventev has something like that where it includes some sort of heater, but that would be interesting because maybe we can do an episode on some extreme weather deployments.
You also have APs that supports cold temperatures.
Yeah, they have a better enclosure, I guess, right, for the AP itself.
Yeah. Outdoor, like industrial APs exist. Yeah, so you have options out there.
Yeah, see, now we should really do an episode about outdoor deployments.
That would be nice.
Yeah, because this episode is not about that at all. We're actually going to follow up with our previous episode where we did an introductory to APIs. And in this episode, we're going to talk about Python coding and Wi-Fi and how we try to tie the two together. And so we're going to talk about our experiences in trying to learn Python at the same time while using it to make our, jobs better or more efficient.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it, I guess.
Yeah. And so before we talk about that, we have some news. The biggest news we have is François won the 2020 Content Contributor of the Year at WPC from Wi-Fi Awards. Congratulations, François.
Thank you.
Oh, that's really crazy. Everyone cheering. Yeah, look at that. It's an awesome achievement. You weren't there to receive the award, but they did post it on Twitter, and some of the guys on our Slack channel congratulated you. And I was like, oh, what did he win? I completely forgot about the Wi-Fi Awards, and I'm glad you won it because you did put out a lot of content last year and some really good content as well. So it's well deserved.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I didn't think I would win actually. I was already super happy to be nominated, and it was kind of like a really nice surprise when I received the message and my phone started to buzz. Like, I was like, what's going on?
You were added on so much of that, and everyone was very appreciative of what you've done. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone who voted for me, I guess. Yeah, it was really nice. And we do a lot of stuff together too. So some of it is it's also yours, Rowell. Most of the content I create is through the podcast, and you do it with me. So
yeah, I only join you on the
podcast. I do it with you, I guess.
Yeah, I join you on the podcast, but you create a lot of the content as well for the podcast, a lot of the show notes and a lot of the testing. So yeah, I think it's well deserved. Some of the other winners, there are other winners in other categories from the Wi-Fi Awards. David Coleman, he won the Lifetime Achievement Award there. That's also well deserved as well. I mean, he's I've learned so much from David Coleman. I don't know how much exactly, just from his books alone and the blog posts that he puts out, the videos, and he's been a big advocate of Wi-Fi for a long time.
And he does a lot of presentation as well. Like, every time at WPC, he does a presentation and you always learn something you don't know, right?
Yeah.
Even in the business for a long time. So it's
he contributed
really well deserved.
He contributed to our presentation while we were presenting in WPC Prague, which was, I thought, very nice of him to do, to provide a little extra information and background for people that were there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then we have Lariana Liu, I think that's her last name. She won the Rookie of the Year award. Congratulations, Lariana. I think that's great as well. And I think it also sets a goal for women in the industry as well, because it is very male centric in the Wi-Fi industry. So to see a woman be able to win the Rookie of the Year award, and also see so many women there at WLPC. I did see a photo. There were so many of them. I thought that was great. Yeah,
that was great. Yeah. I remember a few years back, maybe we had like 2 women. So that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And we've had, I think you and I have been trying to find someone to interview. I mean, we've interviewed maybe one woman before. Can't remember who it was actually, and then we were trying to get more on because most of the interviews have been men, and we want to hear from a woman's perspective in the industry and what they're working on, and to just get them more involved with the podcast as well.
Yeah, that would be nice. If you're a woman out there and you're listening to the podcast, just give us send us a message, so maybe we can do something.
Yeah. And then the Innovation Award went to Ekahau Connect for their products, which made sense to me. I'm using all of their products all the time, and you are too, Francois. You even teach about their products.
Yeah, the Connect one is I guess it's a big innovation. It changed a little bit the way I do my work, especially the iPad app and the way you do the site survey. So I think it's definitely deserved as well in this category, and maybe hopefully these awards will just inspire people to maybe innovate more, or do a little bit more. That would be great.
Yeah, I think that's a big purpose of Wi-Fi Awards, is to acknowledge others in the industry and what they've done. And so this is one way to do it, because also winning the Product of the Year award is Adrian Granados and Wi-Fi Explorer.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's well deserved as well. Yeah. I think most of us use his product. I think I always have at least one of his products open on my laptop all the time.
Yeah, me too. I think I got 2 of them open right now. Always.
So yeah, I even sent him a message like he can apply next year for a Wi-Fi signal and win again.
Yeah, exactly. There's not too many people, I think, creating Wi-Fi specific products, and to have Adrian's win. And he also takes a lot of input from other people in the industry to put into his product. He's always updating it, so he maintains it, all of his apps, pretty well. So congratulations, Adrian. And then the company leadership award went to Cisco. Congratulations, Cisco.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what goes into that category for the requirements, but Cisco has been a pretty big leader in Wi-Fi space. I mean, a lot of people who worked at Cisco created great products for wireless, and that's great. So
and acquire like small companies and, I guess push their product as well. So.
So those are the winners of the Wi-Fi Awards. If you guys want to see the winners or learn more about the winners, you can head over to the show notes, cleartosend.net/209 to see the full list.
And and I just want to say that that's a really nice, the awards is a very nice thing. I don't know, the way they did it was really nice. The way the voting worked, the way they made us wait like so many months. They built up the excitement around it, and then. Yeah, it was really well made, and the suits that they wear. If you go on Twitter and look at the ceremonies, that was pretty cool. Hopefully it's going to continue for next year, and we can do that every year, and you can encourage everyone to participate and vote and everything.
Yeah, and so the people that were involved behind Wi-Fi Awards, there was Keith Parsons, Sam Clements, Jonathan Davis. Is there anyone else that was?
Tony.
Tony is also part of the Wi-Fi Awards. So it was like a real awards ceremony, and they wore suits, and just from the pictures, it looked like a great event. And also, you get a nice award. It's like a little glass award. I don't
stand.
know.
Yeah. Trophy, I guess.
Yeah, they have pictures of it on Twitter, which we link to, and it's pretty cool. All right, the next bit of news, Meraki came out with new Wi-Fi 6 APs, 3 of them. The MR36, MR46, and MR56. Reading through their data sheets, it's kind of interesting because the one thing that we notice is they still call them 802.11ax compatible.
Yeah, and then next to downlink OFDMA, uplink OFDMA, TWT support, and BSS coloring, you have 2 little stars, and then it says that the software features be enabled via firmware updates. Yeah, so they probably have the proper chipset, but they're still working on the firmware to enable that on the Meraki platform.
Yeah, one of the things I'm interested in knowing is if they changed the chip from what they were previously using on the MR45 and MR55, and then they added this MR36, which is the lower end model, I guess, if you want to call it. It's a 2x2 Wi-Fi 6 access point. It has the same shape as the MR46 and MR56. And then the other two, the MR46 is a 4x4, and then the MR56 is an 8x8.
So I guess now pretty much they have a full lineup of product that is AX, I guess, because they have 2x2, 4x4, 8x8. And they all have the same shape, the rugby ball shape.
Yeah.
AP.
Yeah. The shape of their AP reminds me of a specific ship from Avengers.
Okay.
It just looks like we'll see how these access points, how they work out in the field. Maybe I'll get to see one of these with the clients I have, because I know 2 of my clients have gone to the MR45 or MR55. I'd be interested to see what the difference is with the other 3, because this is only been a year later since they announced the MR55 and 45.
No, yeah. Not even.
Yeah, less than a year. I think it was, but I think it was around March is when they announced the MR 45 and 55. That was at that event that we were at Cisco.
Yeah. So you do a lot of work for Meraki, right? So maybe you'll see if you get called for troubleshooting because we have new APs, but it doesn't work.
People in the Bay Area just tend to go with the latest and greatest, and they don't necessarily read the data sheets. They just go, "Oh, it's new. That's what we should install, right?"
it's new and more expensive. Let's get it.
I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's one way to approach things. So. I'm sure a lot of other people run into the same thing, but it most likely will need the latest software version, right? So it's new hardware, so I'm guessing it's beta software in order to use these 3 access points. I haven't looked at the firmware specifically, but that's my guess, because I know in order to use the MR45 and 55, you had to use a higher, like a beta version of code to use these. So that's just one thing to consider. And then we'll cruise through the data sheet, see if there's anything else that's new. And then the last bit of news is Broadcom. I noticed on LinkedIn, VJ, who I think we've interviewed on the show before, that he included a video where they were comparing their new 6 gigahertz chipset to the 5 gigahertz. And I mean, it's not an in-depth video, and it's just them showing that they have a 6 gigahertz chip. They're ready to roll once this thing is approved by the FCC. So they're way ahead of the competition here. And obviously the 6 gigahertz chip is going to do very well, right? Because there's nothing using 6 gigahertz.
Nothing competing, and also no backward compatibility and all this stuff. So maybe it's gonna obviously the prices are going to be better, and then you have to be careful on how they do their tests. They might be doing a test on the 160 megahertz white channels, on 6 gig, and then on the 20 megahertz white channels on 5 gig. So I don't think they would do that, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, it's more marketing than anything. But once 6 gigahertz is approved, I think it will be approved for unlicensed use. We'll most likely see the chips coming from Broadcom, since they've already been working on it. And I was at Network Field Day. Excuse me. I was at Network Field Day last week or the week before, and we did go to the Broadcom office, but they did not talk about the 6 gigahertz chip. They were just talking about the chips that are in their switches. So I was hoping to hear something from them, but they didn't come down to do a presentation on that.
That's too bad, no? But at least it like you said, it's good to see that they have something coming, and hopefully the FCC approved it because all of the hardware they put on that.
Well, they are chip experts, so maybe it wasn't that much work, but
yeah, you're right.
But we'll see. All right, so let's go on to our main topic, Francois. So,
yes,
the last episode we talked about APIs, introductory to APIs, and it's APIs are great to get information from our Wi-Fi systems, but a lot of times if you're working with a system that has no API, like the Cisco wireless LAN controller, the AirOS version, then you just have to kind of screen scrape that data, right? Or put that data into a file and try to parse that information to get the information you need. And then other times you do have API, like we've been playing around with the Mist API. And so what we want to do is talk about the journey that we're taking here into learning how to code, because Francois and I are not experts when it comes to Python coding, and Python's really the only programming language that we're learning at the moment. But here we are, we're trying to integrate this into the work we do to make things more efficient. Right, Francois?
Yeah, exactly. And especially for the past month, I've been diving a little bit more and trying to see if I could automate some things, and then at the same time trying to learn, how to do different things with Pythons and APIs, without APIs, and so on. So it's been quite interesting. And Rowell, you've been doing things. So we just wanted to share some of the things we were doing, the tools we're using, some of the libraries and so on. So you guys can take a look at them as well and maybe learn from our experiences, because we did try some stuff that didn't work.
Yeah, there's a lot of testing. I mean, because we're new at this, there's going to be a period where you just lose a lot of time, and only because you're just getting started with this, right? So there's going to be a lot of experimenting, a lot of testing, and a lot of failures, but that's all part of learning. And it's like how we first learned about Wi-Fi and how we still continue to learn. It's just a different mindset with Python. And so Python is where we're focusing on right now. And if you're going to look at the new CWNP certifications, Python is going to be a big focus there when it comes to they changing the name of the certification. So I guess
IoT,
the IoT focus track. There is a specific certification that will focus more on the Python side, and then they'll probably come out with Python training as well. But in this episode, first we'll talk about the tools, right? Because there are a few tools that we do use. There's going to be a lot of different tools you can utilize, but just to start, this is what we use. So I'm pretty big on using Atom on the Mac, ATOM, which is a free a text editor for writing code, and so it'll display things differently. It will kind of complete certain things for you. And so that's what I think they call it.
I think they call it IDE, Integrated Development Environment. So it's pretty much an application that you use to code.
Yeah, and you could tie it into like GitHub, for example. So it's very specific to coding. One of the new applications that I just downloaded was Visual Studio Code. It's actually a lot more complex than Atom, but I did hear from a lot of people that they like using it. And one of the first features that I saw was you could run the code straight in the application, and then a little terminal opens up to show you what the output looks like.
I can do that with Atom as well, with plugins.
Oh, okay. So I didn't even know that. So a lot of these apps I'm still trying to learn as well, because for me, like I'll just type it out in Atom because it's got all the colors in there as well, so I can see the differences and like what I'm working with, and then I'll just run things in iTerm.
Yeah, that I like to do that as well. I like to use my iTerm and then run it in iTerms and go back to Atom to edit the code. It might not be the most efficient.
Yeah, it's not the most efficient way, and like you said, there's a plugin where you could run the code from Atom, and then that way you don't have to switch windows, I guess, right? So, I mean, that's one app to look at. There's a lot more features in that app, which I haven't even dove into. I haven't really learned the application. I've been so focused on just wanting to learn how to code that I just use it for basic code editing, right?
One thing I would like to know is if you can do debugging using Atom, because I haven't came across the need to do debugging yet, but as you create more and more complex script, it's really convenient to have a debugging tool, and it pretty much stops the execution and tell you what the values of your variable are. And you can try to see if you did something wrong or if you need to adjust something, and it will just help you in the process. So I don't know if it's possible. It would be nice.
Yeah. And then for the Windows, I don't know if Atom's available for Windows. Do you know?
No, I'm not sure.
For the Windows guys, I know Notepad++ is still available for Windows. So that's, you can probably
the Visual Studio Code is for Windows too, right?
Yeah, you can get that for Windows. Yeah. So there's there's apps for every operating system. For me and François, we're heavy on Mac OS. So most of the apps we talked about will be for Mac OS, but there is different versions for the Windows space as well. So like even Visual Studio Code, and the next one, Postman, is for Mac and Windows. And Postman's great if you're going to work with APIs. That's the best way to test out APIs and start building code from there. And I think Postman's like one of the best tools that's out there.
Yeah. Yeah, Postman is really nice. It's used by millions of people, I think. When you download the tool, they tell you.
I'm pretty sure it is. And Meraki is pretty big on using Postman as well. They'll tell when you go through their labs, they will tell you to download Postman, download a collection, which includes all the different
API
requests.
calls.
Yeah, the API calls.
Yeah.
And then you could build something like what's called an environment that's specific to whatever you're working with, right? So I have different environments for like different clients in Meraki. So if I switch to the environment for that specific client, I'm going to be querying things in their organization rather than querying everything in all my list of clients that I have within Meraki. And it's the same way with Mist too. So there's specific parameters that you'll put in that you'll just query something from a specific organization or network. And that's pretty much the basics I use with Postman. I don't get too deep with all the different features. I use the bare minimums for Postman.
Yeah, for now, I've always used the bare minimum as well, but I know you can also do some scripting directly within Postman. So let's say, you want to deploy multiple sites with Meraki, you can actually, write your script within Postman and it will do the API calls for you and then execute the code.
Yeah.
So it's pretty nice. Yeah.
And what's cool is when you run maybe an inventory query, for example, a get on to return inventory, there is a section, a little link called code, and it's the very basic minimum code, and you can pick whatever language you're using. So if I use Python as an example, it'll give you the code with the libraries, the URL, the headers, and then the exact request to get that specific inventory, and you can start your script with that, and then just develop on top of it.
That's cool.
So that's what I primarily use that for when it comes to working with APIs. And then some of the other things we use, I use the Cisco wireless controller 8540 to do some of the queries with the code. I just have access to various different 8540s. So I like using that controller because there's a lot of clients and APs connected, so I can practice some queries and commands in order to bring that into my environment and then kind of iterate over those results.
You can turn all the radio off and see what happens.
I haven't pushed anything. I haven't pushed the configuration. It's mostly been show commands because I definitely don't want to break it.
Shoot.
That's a great thing with automation is you can't be dumb with it, right? So one change could change everything in an environment.
Yeah. Well, it can speed things up and it can also speed mistakes up, right?
Yeah, exactly. Which is why you should do most of your stuff in a test environment first.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And then if it works for 10, it doesn't mean it's going to work for 200.
Or worse, it'll work for 200.
Yeah.
And then you have an outage. So, yeah, I would just try to leverage some lab environment. So if you don't have a lab, you could always use the Cisco Sandbox. They have some labs that are always on, and you could practice some of the commands on there if you want to. I don't know if they have a wireless controller in the lab. I haven't checked. I'm pretty sure they do at this point, but maybe even for the 9800.
I've never tried the Cisco Sandbox, but I think they do.
Yeah, maybe we should add a link to that because it's free, and all you have to do is have an account on on their site. So once you log in, there's different labs you can choose from. And if you search for Always On, these are labs that are, all you have to do is reserve it, and you can specify however much time you want, let's say an hour, and then they'll give you all the details to log into the devices, and then from there you could run your code. And so what it'll do is you'll use Cisco AnyConnect to VPN into this environment, and then you can start running your queries or scripts.
Okay.
So a lot of their labs are based on these always on lab environments. And then the next tool is the Mist Cloud. We have Mist APs that we've received from the BLPC Prague. And so a lot of times to play with the API, we'll use the Mist Cloud API because it's a pretty extensive API. And that's what I'm running at home, is the Mist AP. And so I have clients there that I can query against. And I think part of the cool things in our Slack group is we have a channel for Python. And so you and I have been sharing code that we just generate for Mist, just kind of on the fly, right? So it's and that's how I know I've been progressing a little, is I'm now able to access the Mist API, which you've written a blog post on. So we'll also link to that in the show notes. And then from there, what you want to get from the Mist Cloud, right? And so in my example, I just wanted to get a list of all the WLANs in my organization and whether or not they're enabled or not, and also what VLAN. And so learning Python, I was able to create a for loop based on the request that's received. I put that request into a variable, and then I query specific things like the name of the SSID, the status, if it's enabled or not, and the VLAN. And then I print that into a simple, like per line for each SSID. And it's a very simple, it's not even a table. I'm just using tabs. I just print the SSID name. I do a tab, like if you're pressing tab on your keyboard, then I do the next section. And so it does that for each WLAN that's enabled. And that's a pretty basic script. I mean, it's not as useful, but it's one way to get started in figuring out what you can do.
Yeah, and that's really nice. I did a couple of scripts for Mist as well to get familiar with the APIs and how everything works. And the first one I did was just retrieving the APs I have assigned to a specific site. And then I had an AP, like a brand new AP that I've never staged, so it didn't have a name. So I created a script that would rename that AP, right, based on the MAC address.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I did both the get, the get API to get information, and the push API to actually, configure something on the dashboard. And that worked well. And so I pretty much, maybe I'll do a video about it because it was actually pretty nice, and I wanted to share that with people. But what I did is I run the first script to list the APs, and I have it laid out with name and MAC address, and I can see that one of my APs not renamed. Then I renamed the AP using my script, and then I rerun the list AP script that will just show me the updated names, and I can see if everything worked well. It's pretty cool.
So when you're renaming them, so you've downloaded the list of APs, and then where do you put the new name of the AP? You just put it into the same document, and then it uploads that, does a push to the Mist Cloud to update the AP name?
Yeah. So when let me see, because I have to.
You got to open your screen.
Yeah. I have. Okay. So I do, I think I do 2 calls to the get.
Yeah.
Right. So I do the first get call to get all the APs, and then I loop on all my APs, and I search for, based on address, because I have the MAC address, right? I search the AP object I want to. Once I have it, I modify the name in my Python dictionary.
Yeah.
And then I create my API URL for the push to update the name as well.
Nice. Yeah, because I could probably work off of your script, because I have a very specific workflow in my environment where we name the AP specifically, which is tied to the port, whatever the cabler named as the port on the patch panel. So we add that to the name, so that way if you ever saw the AP name, you can go back to the patch panel and be like, oh, it's connected here. And so it'd be cool if you could tie that into like Google Sheets, right, where people would update the name of the AP.
Yeah.
And then you could just pull from the Google Sheets and then push that up to the cloud. And then when you're comparing, then you could grab, do a GET request and grab the MAC address of the AP and the AP name and compare that to what was on the Google Sheet and see which ones are actually matching or not.
Yeah.
That would
that would be the ideal use case. So for my script, I put the MAC address and the name as a argument to the script, but the ideal case would be to have like a sheet or like a Google Sheet or Excel sheet where you put all the MAC address and all the names, and it just loops on that, and then change all the names.
Yeah, that would be neat, because I do that as a workflow, is renaming APs, and I know that takes time. Like on the Cisco AirOS side is renaming APs, but being able to use a sheet that was done by the installer, right? They put in like you have a template of the AP name, like AP1 site, and then the dash with the location in that building. Then if they update that portion, then you could just use scripting to put it together. And maybe they don't even have to change the name of the AP. They just you have a column for them where it includes a port location. And then you could do, what is it called? Like the concatenate, where you just combine the name and then upload that. So, I mean, those are like the ideas I have. I just haven't gotten to that point. Because then I have to learn Google API, Google Sheets API, which you've done a little bit of, right?
You can. It's not too complex. You can find tutorials online and get set up with the Google API in like 30 minutes. So it's not too bad.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about connecting to an AirOS controller, because there's no API there. It's for us, it's strictly, for all I know, just command line, logging in, using your script, and then issuing commands. So that's something that you and I were both, you've been actually working on it more than me. I just did one not too long ago. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's where it gets a little more complex, but it's also great for learning. So like you said, what you have to do is you have to create a script that connects via SSH to your controller, and then issue a command, and then the controller will send you the output of that command, let's say show AP summary, and then you have to parse that information somehow in your script in order for instance, extract the AP names or the status of your APs and stuff like that. And the easiest way to do that is to actually use different libraries that will help you to get it done in an easier fashion. But you can get around, regex to help you parse the text, and that's where the complexity lives, I think.
Yeah, because it's not as easy to learn how to use regex, and I think I learned the very basics, and plus my queries are so simple that I don't need to create such complex arguments there, or a search string. And so that is one library we use, regex. And then I think the easiest way to connect to a controller using SSH is NetMiko, which is another library.
Yeah, we did a couple of blog on that. If you want to check it out, you can even download the code for yourself and try it for yourself. Yeah, you can just use Netmiko. You have to give out the name of your controller, IP address, and credentials to log in.
Yeah.
But you'll be able to log in using Netmiko and then send a command.
Yeah, it uses something called a connect handler. And then using a connect handler, you have a parameter to send a command. And so in my script, I was actually just comparing APs before and after RRM changes. And so I was looking at a show advanced 802.11a summary, for example. And then obviously that just outputs that to your screen, but you got to do something with it, right? So I didn't know what to do offhand, so I just assigned it to a variable. And then from there, I created a pattern to search off of. And so I was just looking for a specific name of AP. And so, for example, if I was looking for something called B2 for building 2, that's it would look over that in the file and with using a for loop. And so when I first did that, it created the output, but it was very ugly. And so that's when I figured out, okay, I need to learn how to do it per line, print it out one line at a time. And that's where I learned how to do split lines, which is it'll look at the end of the line and then just make a new one based on the output. And then I just printed each AP that was named B2, which included its channel and transmit power. Now, it included everything in the line that you would see in 802.11a summary. So I need to do more practice in just grabbing the specific data that I want and excluding the stuff that didn't matter to me.
Yeah, so I guess you can use regex for that. I found a really nice website. It's regexr.com that helps you to build your regex. So you can actually put the text in one box, and then you have another text box where you can build your regex, and it's going to tell you if it matches your text or not.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's one way. That's a good way to practice, actually.
Yeah, it's a really nice way to practice, and then to validate also that your regex is working. So I used that. I used also a library called TextFSM.
Okay.
And TextFSM is actually a library that has been developed, I think, by a guy from Google to parse some CLI output. Right.
Okay.
So it's kind of like built for the purpose. And the way it works is you create a template where you define your regex, right? And then you could define different variable, let's say name, like AP name, AP MAC address, AP IP address, and then you define, the regex right after that, and then it's going to parse your text, the output of what you get using this template, and then it's going to create variables for you where it's going to assign, the name to the variable AP name and so on. And if it works, you can retrieve that data in your script. I found that it works pretty well. I was parsing different, the output of different comments like AP, show AP summary, and show advanced 802.11, the radio summary as well.
Yeah.
And I was able to create my tables of AP with the MAC address and channels and transmit power levels of that. So it took me a little bit of work to create my regex and understand, how the template worked and everything. But it worked pretty well. And then what I would try to do is I try to take the output of a show run, right? And I try to extract the same information, and that's where it became really complex to create the regex that would just work. I think it's doable. It's going to take way more work to create that template document that works with TextFSM to make it work. But that would be nice if you could just create a script that just takes the show run. Let's say you're working with a customer, they send you the show run, and then you can extract only the information that you want. That would be really nice.
Yeah, and the reason why it's difficult to get the data you want out of a Cisco Air OS controller is because it's not a structured data format, and it looks like it puts it into a table, but a lot of times it's not easily this for you to go, all right, I want column 1, for example, and column 3. You can't just specify like a column because the data that you receive is not in a table format. It just looks like one, but it's really just for us text format in a variable or in a file, for example. So you have to use regex to try to get the information you need. And so that's the hard part with dealing with systems that don't have an API, because with API, you can just grab the information you want pretty easily, and you put that into like a JSON format. And then within Python, it's either like a list or a dictionary, and you can get the keys and values specifically.
Yeah. So I guess the future is not there. The future is more going to be APIs and structured data.
Right.
But I still have a lot of customers that have, older systems, and they cannot really upgrade because they have older APs, and it means a bigger investment and all of that. So I think we're still going to have some good use cases for, I guess it depends who you work for, but you might still have some good use cases for still, parsing the text and all of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, what you were doing with the building is actually a really nice idea. Just only showing the AP from one specific building. I know I had this, this need for some of the work I've done as well. So,
yeah, and it's as long as your APs have been named in a way where you could query them easily, which most people have it set up that way. And like you said, there's a lot of systems that are still using the AirOS code, so there's going to be different scripts that we'll have to create to try to speed things up, right? Even for validation purposes, to see if you've got all your APs. There's been a lot of times where I go, were all the APs installed? I know it was 10 APs, for example, but are those the right 10 APs, or was there one that got installed that's wasn't on your list, for example? You could easily query the MAC addresses or even the serial numbers. And so that's where the complexity comes in. And then in the future, I guess as we progress with Python, one of the things that I want to do is to tie in different systems to get a specific output, right? So maybe query something on a controller and then something from a client, and maybe look at RSSI values, like how the AP sees the client and how the client sees the AP for RSSI. So something,
and then you
like
could
that.
even save that into a Google Sheet, and then you tie in with the API. Go.
Yeah. So I think that would be
systems.
So maybe with like the WLAN Pi, I don't know. Get information from there. Get information from your AP system. It doesn't have to be AirOS. It could be whatever system that also includes API, and then tie that into your Google Sheet. Graph it somehow. I mean, you can get pretty creative with some of the stuff depending on your needs. And I think this is why we're looking at Python so much and how to use it, just so we can be better and more efficient with what we do. And then we can develop our own solutions and not be tied down to, say, like a big vendor solution. Maybe that's out of your price range or out of your budget. You just need something very simple. You can create something.
Yeah, they even, I don't know if you saw, but Nigel Bowden, he created this YPerf module on the WLAN Pi that kind of does this. You can run some tests directly from the WLAN Pi, and so you can send them to yours, and it will be all the it's kind of like a cheaper way of doing these and those type of answers, and then it will create the database and then save the data for you. Even set up the Splunk.
Yeah, that's good. I had that conversation on our Slack channel with Christian Roberts about using a simple tool just to do some basic testing. Like I didn't need a full-on paid solution. I just wanted to take one client, test it with very specific tests, like basic metrics, because I was trying to troubleshoot some connectivity with this that went through this specific device. And I had users who had this device that say their internet kept cutting out, but I was never able to replicate it whenever I did it. So I wanted to put the WLAN Pi connected to Wi-Fi and then just have it running, just so I could see if it ever did drop and see if it was a hardware issue for whatever reason, or if it was a network issue that I just could not see. And I think that YPerf with a WLAN PI, I'm going to actually test out.
Yeah, man, the WLAN PI is becoming something like a really powerful tool.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
crazy.
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the that's where we're at right now, and we'll share some of the code that we're creating and some of the resources that we're using. So, including all the libraries that we mentioned over at the show notes. So, if you head over to clear2send.or/209, that's where you'll find all that information. And François, you want to add anything, Mr. Content Contributor of the Year?
No, but maybe we can ask a question for the audience, as a question of the week. Sometimes we'll do that. I guess the question this week could be, do you guys, when you do your everyday work, do you try to keep that in mind in the back of your head? Do you try to think how you could automate things? Is it programming? Do you just, breathe through the task? As usual, I know I've been trying to automate as much as I can, but I would be curious to see if you guys have that and which task you like to automate. One thing I can share, I guess, is one thing I've been doing is I created a couple of scripts to extract the pictures from my EKA projects.
Oh yeah,
I love taking pictures with the iPad now. And so to a site survey, I take pictures of the APs. If I need to take pictures of the environment, I would do that as a text note or, AP, notes, map notes, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I can run a script and I'll just extract all the picture, put it in a folder or classified per floors. And then I can send that to the customer.
Yeah, there you go. That's one perfect way to use scripting. And so we'd like to hear what your thoughts are, your ideas, and we can maybe talk about them on the show as well.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
All right, guys. That's all we have for today's episode, or this week's episode. If you guys have any questions or want to reach out to us, hit us up on Twitter at clear2send, and check out the show notes, clear2send.net/209. And we'll see you guys at the next episode. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Have a good week. Bye-bye.